Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us, Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase, pricing, and availability questions concerning this watch. The watch we're discussing today was a 2017 limited edition of 25 pieces in white gold from Moritz Grossmann of Glashütte, Germany. This is the Atum Enamel, a watch that features a Gronfo enamel dial inside a white gold case with features that make this distinctively Moritz Grossmann. So the timepiece is fairly substantial for a dress watch at 41 millimeters in diameter. It's thin at 11.6 millimeters thick, and then lug-to-lug 50.7 millimeters with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lug horns. I'll throw it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, and it fits nicely. That said, I really do think you need a wrist my size or larger to wear this. You can see how the lugs are out to the edge of my wrist. Even when viewed down the barrel, you can see that they're out to the edge. Now, it fits well, and it fits fine, but if your wrist is much smaller than this, there are smaller Moritz Grossmann cases, including 37 millimeters, which might be a perfect match. It's not thick, though. You can see that being thin with a sloped bezel, it will slide underneath the dress cuff. The strap is high grade, and you can see it is a Moritz Grossmann factory strap in outstanding condition with calfskin on the bottom, large rectangular symmetrical scale alligator leather in dark blue with semi-gloss finish on the top. It has a little bit of bolstering or stuffing to add volume, a monotone stitch, and a folded edge, and it's paired with a Moritz Grossmann branded white gold buckle. Taking a look at the case, the first thing that stands out is that these are welded on lugs, and they're beautifully welded. You can see that junction between lug and case is not a simple one with complex curves and facets. Welded lug construction is a very old-fashioned way and a laborious traditional way of making a case, where you build the case and the lugs separately, you insert the lugs into the flank of the case, and then you file out the gathered material from the weld to create a super sharp break. This is not something that machining or stamping generally can accomplish, and it takes a lot of time to perfect the case maker's art to achieve this, but the results are these super sharp breaks and junctions that have multiple curvatures and focal points all the way around. You can see the filing is perfect at every angle. There's also a little bit of a concave dip to these lugs. They're fairly complex, and you can see there's a soft bevel that actually expands as you approach the case. The case has a little bit of tumble home, being wider at its base than at the top, and the bezel is very limited. We have a dramatically cambered and boxed sapphire. We have a traditionally inspired crown, which is to say the crown is unbranded, and the Germans think of everything. They give you a little kerf underneath for digging your nail in. Moritz Grossmann uses a unique and patented setting system. So you can see how my seconds hand is cruising away. Well, I pull the crown up, watch the crown, see how it jumps back, flush to the case. Now this is the winding and setting position. It's one position. Pull the crown out, it snaps back. And it's in winding mode now. And you'll note that the seconds hand has been halted. So this is a hacking system. The balance has been halted. What normally happens when you set a watch, I like to go backwards, when you set a watch precisely to a minute, oftentimes you push the crown back in and the minute hand does this, or this, or this, or this, or this. But with Moritz Grossmann's system, once you set the hand, you simply re-engage the drive system. The crown is already flush, so re-engaging the drive just like that does not budge the minute hand. You can set it precisely and then keep it set. Notice when I press this little release, the balance begins beating again. 18,000 vibrations per hour. That balance wheel is made by Moritz Grossmann. It is their own aerodynamic recessed bolt free-sprung balance, and almost all the timing adjustments are done using that balance, which is 14.2 millimeters in diameter. It's bigger than the balance on the front of a MB&F legacy machine split escapement. Now you can see that they have their own proprietary steel micrometric screw-based adjustment index. That is used for very, very fine tuning of the timing. The primary means of adjusting this balance is the screws on the balance itself. The dial here is made of vitreous enamel. You can see two discs, one for the sub-seconds, one for the primary dial. So on a base, glass-based paint, that is vitreous paint, is applied and fired up to 20 times, sometimes more, at 800 degrees Celsius, to create this glossy and tarnish-free, corrosion-resistant, eternally beautiful, shining dial. That's the nice thing about enamel. It will never tarnish, oxidize, discolor. It's effectively eternal. It's glass, after all. And then Moritz Grossmann is in the hand-making business. This is a very specialized operation that most independent manufacturers, even those that can make movements and cases and dials, they rarely make their own hands. At Moritz Grossmann, that's just the way it's done. You could see that the hands are cut and then polished and faceted and then fired briefly to create this violet-brown hue. If you fire something forever, it turns blue. That's easy. But getting a lighter color or a color with more yellow undertones, that takes timing. You can also see that the centers and the cannon pinions have been mirror polished. There's also a blue Roman numeral 12 up at the top, a chemin de fer, or a railroad track for both seconds and minutes, and then radially arrayed Roman numerals with a watchmaker's 4. Jump into the back, we have caliber 101, which is huge. It's built to fit this case, and by that, I mean this movement is 36.4 millimeters in diameter. It's very close to the size of a Unitas 6497, but this was built with wristwatches, not pocket watches, in mind. It's got a lot of traditional elements from East German watchmaking before the collectivization under the communists from 1951 to 54. So this harks back to the era of Moritz Grossmann, the man, who was an accomplished watchmaker. And so we have this large 3/4 style plate. We also have golden chaton cups fixed into the bridge with screws, because before jewels could be precisely pressed directly into bridges and plates, they were pressed into precision golden cups and then set in the bridges using screws. And you could see the screws on the case back here use that same violet-brown short firing that you get on the hands on the dial side. We also have freehand engraving, not just on the balance cock as at Lange, but also on the half bridge for the escape wheel. And you can see that only clear sapphires are used for the pivot jewels, not the chemically similar but red synthetic ruby. No, this is all very pale. And you can see that the same is true for the palette stones, the attention to detail exceptional. There's an overcoil hairspring, so in any physical position, the watch will keep consistent time. It will be isochronous in every position. You can also see that this 20 jewel movement is constructed in a pillar fashion, which means like an old marine chronometer, and before the innovations of Lepine were universally adopted, the bridges sit on top of the base plate with these little pillars holding them apart, so it's not a bridge placed directly onto the plate. And this is the way old Glashütte and Hamburg marine chronometers would have been made. Now, the material is German silver, a nickel-copper zinc alloy that was also used on vintage German pocket watches, and the copper gives it that champagne hue. You can also see that we have triple solarization on the ratchet wheel, mirror polishing of the crown wheel core, and the closer we get, the more easily you can see micro beveling of the teeth of those wheels, an excruciating hand-finishing process that even a lot of Holy Trinity watches do not bother with. You can also see that we have both black polished and fired screws, and particularly with this enormous polished screw on the ratchet wheel, you could see its chamfered circumference and its beveled slot. You can also appreciate that this movement, which has a 42-hour manual winding power reserve, features freehand engraving of all characters on the bridge. So not just the balance cock and the escape wheel cock, but you can see how the bridge has been freehand engraved, so no two of these watches will be exactly alike. And the stripes, or the Streifen, because we are in Germany, they are broad and luminous and abrasive wheel laid rather than stamped on. We also have this click, which, as you can see, is a wonderful spring-loaded extensible click that's been mirror polished. That prevents the movement from running backwards or the barrel from running backward. And although we don't have a lot of bridges here, you can see that the ones that are here have mirrored anglage. You can also see that the detailing is exceptional. Even the micro scale for the fine adjustment index is freehand engraved. And you can see that the adjuster itself has been mirror polished and beveled on itself, the little index. All of this 30 meters water resistant. If you love this watch, which is a work of art on every level, reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.